Branos for the Coach Speak Index. Yes, sir. How are y'all doing this fine week 12? Are you focused on what lies ahead of you this week as we hurl towards the fantasy playoffs? I've had, I'll be honest, a little bit of a problem focusing this past week. And I'll tell you why. You guys ever watch a film or an episode of a TV show that sticks with you for days, sometimes weeks, just thinking about it? Not necessarily every second, but it is at the forefront of your mind. It's something just so spectacular, something that just really makes an impression on you for one reason or another, and that is what is happening, or has happened with me this week. It's still happening. I'll explain. There's a show on Apple TV. I don't think I've talked about it. I know I've mentioned Slow Horses, but there's a show called Silo on Apple TV that you should really check out. It stars Rebecca Ferguson, a person who I would absolutely love to uppercut me off of the Empire State Building. But season 2 just premiered last week. I binged the first season about a month ago and saw, season 2 coming up. That's pretty cool. Season 2 premiere, absolutely spellbinding, incredible. Thinking about it all week. Cannot wait for the next episode, which I believe comes out tomorrow. But check out Silo. Really good. Apple TV just crushing it with their shows. Golden age of television level stuff. Silo, Slow Horses, Severance, other shows that don't begin with an S, like Masters of the Air, The After Party, one of my personal favorites, Pachinko. Really, really great stuff happening there on Apple TV. Speaking of golden, folks, you should check out what is happening right now on Underdog Fantasy, because NFL playoff best ball tournaments are starting up over there. They are so much fun because not only are you taking a stand on players, but you're also taking a stand on which teams you think will make the NFL playoffs and basically which teams you believe will make it to the Super Bowl. So if you think the Niners have a much better chance of making the playoffs than what is reflected by the market, what is reflected by what people are saying about them, and you think they can make it to the Super Bowl, pretty good spot. Get you a Niners Bills heavy team, a Niners Chiefs heavy team, Niners Ravens heavy team. Maybe I was gonna say Niners Chargers, but I don't think Chargers are quite there yet. Anyway, sign up on Underdog with promo code CoachSpeak to claim a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash, plus a free pick. And I will have a link to that in the description for this episode. Let us begin, as we always do, with injuries. Go through a few real quick. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan said that quarterback Brock Purdy is day-to-day with shoulder soreness that resulted from a hit in Week 11's game versus the Seahawks. Shanahan added that he didn't think it affected Purdy in the game. Kyle Shanahan has an 80% reliability rating on Injury Coach Speak. I expect Purdy to play definitely week 13 with a good chance to play in week 12 here. Lions head coach Dan Campbell provided an update on tight end Sam Laporta, who missed last week's game with a shoulder injury. Campbell said, quote, questionable to above for Laporta. I think it's trending the right way. Dan Campbell has a 90% reliability rating on injury coach speak. I am cautiously optimistic about Sam Laporta suiting up this week based on Dan Campbell's language here. Questionable to above. I think it's trending the right way. Those are not quite the phrases that we are looking for from Dan Campbell. We have definitely specific phrases that we are always on the lookout for from all of the coaches based on what is in the database. So looking for a little bit stronger language. Hopefully we get that in tomorrow's press conference. I'm sure they will ask him about Laporta there. Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles says that wide receiver Mike Evans is trending towards returning to the field this week after missing the last 3 games with a hamstring injury. Todd Bowles has an 85% reliability rating on injury coach speak. I expect Mike Evans to suit up here in week 12. Let us now go to some coach speak clips. It's a lot of running backs this week. It is mainly running backs. It's, I think, all but 2 clips. We'll begin in Dallas, where everything is bigger. It's Texas, but Dallas is in Texas. You get it. Everything's bigger, and the light shines brighter deep in the heart of Dallas. This was before Week 11. It's head coach Mike McCarthy on running back Rico Dowdle.
Garrett Podell, CBS Sports. Mike, Rico Dowdle's efficiency's gone up the last few weeks. How important is it? I know obviously you always say you want to get the run game going. Him, and especially against a team that has 2 top-end edge rushers like you said.
Yeah, definitely got to get him the ball. I mean, that's my focus. Just continue to get him opportunities. He's the lead back, and I thought he had a really good first half, and I think that's really illustrated by the attempts. Rico needs to touch the ball.
Rico needs to touch the ball, and that is what happened in Week 11. He dominated the backfield opportunities in that first half before the game really got out of hand. 34-10 final there. So what Mike McCarthy has been saying about Rico Dowdle, we got to use him, we got to get him the ball. I mean, that's happening. They're making an attempt to use him quite a bit, to have him be the lead guy there. Last 3 weeks, 18 opportunities, 15 opportunities, 15 opportunities. Last 2 games, blowouts, 34-6, 34-10. These are the 2 games that Cooper Rush has started this season. Cowboys have scored just 16 points combined in these 2 games with Cooper Rush. So it's a situation where, Rico Dowdle is getting the opportunities that Mike McCarthy is talking about. Got to get him the ball. He's our lead guy. We're seeing that. It's just happening in a really bad offense. This Dallas Cowboys offense is completely different than what we've seen in the past. Obviously, Dak Prescott out changes things quite a bit, but also this offensive line coming into the season, I mean, not even close to what we've seen from these strong offensive lines in past years in Dallas. And now they're also dealing with injuries on top of that. Just a really bad situation all around. Mike McCarthy is, a good enough play caller and offensive mind when he has the stars, when he has the players to execute. But when we're getting into situations like this where the cupboard is kind of bare, he's not the most creative offensive genius. So we're going to see struggles. I expect to see this Cowboys team continue to struggle offensively. So cool that Rico Dowdle is getting the opportunities that Mike McCarthy is talking about. But when Dallas is falling behind so much in these games, establishing the run is over. And Dallas has talked about this for weeks and weeks of we've got to establish the run. We've got to establish the ground game. And they've tried, but they fall behind, and they have to turn to Cooper Rush to throw the ball 50 times to get back in the game. It is bad times in Dallas. Okay. Denver Broncos. This was before week 11. This is offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi on whether Audric Estime is ready for a full-time workload after he dominated the backfield in week 10.
Estime was your top ball carrier this last game. Is he ready for a full-time load that way going forward?
Well, I think if he keeps, running the ball like he did, it certainly appeared like that. He had some success early, and you ride the hot hand. But we feel good about him. But, we feel good about Javonte. We feel good about Jaleel. But he was the one that was kind of on the good end of the reps. And, you keep gaining yards when you get the ball. We keep giving you the ball. So, we'll see how it shakes out going forward. But, yeah, I think, he's a big, tough, strong guy, and those guys are built to last. So, yeah, he can definitely handle the carries.
You ride the hot hand. And that's what we saw in week 11 after a week 10 game where Audric Estime played 45% of offensive snaps, got 14 carries. In week 11, 23% of snaps, 6 carries, 3 catches, and a lot of that work was later in the game, which Denver was blowing out the Falcons, ended up winning 38-6. Sean Payton mentioned this hot hand stuff in yesterday's press conference, and in an earlier press conference this week, here is what he had to say about Estime and the Denver backfield.
You've said multiple times that you have a hard time figuring out the right recipe with 3 running backs. Is that still plaguing you a bit?
No problem. Yeah, it's just hard to feed 3. I just think historically I can't think, and so I don't know that I have the immediate answer. I want to keep getting the young guy work, and yet Javonte's young, and Jaleel, we kind of got going. I thought Javonte had a real good night. And then some of the explosive plays were coming out of the passing game. We'll figure it out each week, though, and kind of plan accordingly.
It's a mess in that Denver backfield. Let's get Marie Kondo on the scene here to sort that out. It's classic fantasy whack-a-mole in one backfield. It's becoming pretty clear that Jaleel McLaughlin has this, very kind of small role here in Denver. And then they're just kind of bouncing back and forth between Javonte Williams and Audric Estime. It's hard to trust any of these guys. And we're not even getting that classic kind of Sean Payton, Denver running back reception scam that we've seen in the past. And part of that is, Bo Nix has these wheels. So sometimes it's a check down. Sometimes it's just Bo Nix taking off. And then you also have Marvin Mims in the mix, who yesterday Sean Payton was talking about how good of a runner he is and how they want to highlight the things that he does well. So the Broncos have kind of realized Marvin Mims, not a great route runner, not a great receiver, but he's good with the ball in his hands, which we've seen, and Peyton has talked about. We've seen that in the return game. So they were thinking, okay, well, what he does in the return game, how can we get that going on offense? And they've done it by putting him in the backfield, which hurts Javonte Williams, which hurts Audric Estime, which hurts Jaleel McLaughlin stocks. And also on these little kind of pop screens where Mims, we've seen him score on those. We've seen him gain some good yardage on those. Sean Payton is kind of in his bag, and unfortunately, it's not really paying off for the running backs in fantasy here. What to do with that Denver backfield? Maybe just stay away. Maybe just, look to the 31 other backfields in the NFL. Here's another backfield. It's the Los Angeles Chargers. And this is offensive coordinator Greg Roman talking about Gus Edwards before Week 11's game.
Getting Gus back in the mix, what kind of impact do you think that had on your...
I thought he played well. I mean, he was Gus. I really felt like it's the best he's looked since he's been back this year. He had a few things he was working through in the offseason. Got that little IR break to get some things right. And Gus is back. The bus is back. So I thought he looked really well. Did a lot of things well, really impacted the game. And it's great to have him ready to roll for the down the stretch, down the road. So at the end of the year, a lot of people don't like tackling him, especially when it gets cold out. But no, he did really well. It's great to see him out there.
Do you think his presence alone can lift the running game, just because he brings a level of physicality, of size that you guys don't really have outside of him in the running back?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely gives you a different component, for sure. And he's just a good running back, I was with him when he first got in the league, and just saw him develop, and he's done a great job. So it's just good to see him moving like we like to see him, And that was really the game where it was like, okay, Gus is back. So that was great.
Gus is back. The bus is back. Gus Edwards did look pretty good in Week 10, which is what Greg Roman is talking about here. 10 carries, 55 yards. Saw some of that, old power from Gus Edwards that we didn't see early in the season. But those 10 carries were on just 15 snaps. And then in Week 11, Gus Edwards gets the start. He's out there very first snap. Ends up with just 6 carries for 27 yards on 11 snaps. So he is getting some touches, but he's not playing much. Basically, they put him in for a dozen or so snaps, and he gets carries on most of them. The most problematic thing with Gus Edwards in fantasy is when the Chargers are getting down to the goal line, Gus Edwards is not in there. He's nowhere to be seen. He's vanished. He's a memory. He's been memory holed by Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. We keep seeing Hassan Haskins get goal line carries. And he got stuffed a bunch this past week. And finally they said, no, enough. Get out of here, Hassan. We're bringing somebody else in on the goal line. Well, surely this is going to be Gus Edwards. This has got to be Gus' bus, right? Greg Roman just said the bus is back. Surely, certainly, They will ride the bus to pay dirt. Nope. J.K. Dobbins, touchdown. Hopefully this Hassan Haskins goal line experiment that has gone horribly awry is over. Put a moratorium on that experiment. Enough. Well, speaking of enough, I have had quite enough of Marshawn Lloyd injuries. Good Lord. This next clip is from offensive coordinator Adam Stenavich of the Green Bay Packers. And he was asked about whether Marshawn Lloyd can contribute when he returns. Lloyd pulled his hamstring in training camp or during a preseason game. Missed time. Came back in week 2. Injured his ankle. Went to IR. He was ready to come back from IR. You can't make this up. Ready to come back. Ready to be activated. Return to the field. Wakes up with appendicitis. Packers weren't sure what to do because if they don't, if they don't activate him, right? I believe they had opened his window, right? But it's a 21-day window, so gotta bring him back to the 53-man roster, or else he's done for the season. So they were talking with the league about, hey, this is a weird situation, right? Not normal. Don't want to lose this guy for the season. What can we do about it? And the Packers end up placing him on the non-football injury list and still on the 53-man roster. So he will be eligible to play when he is ready, when he is healthy. But this is what offensive coordinator Adam Stenavich said when he was asked about whether Marshawn Lloyd can contribute when he returns.
Don't know if you're going to get Marshawn Lloyd this week or not, but when he is in, can he still contribute? I mean, is there something?
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to get him back in the fold. Obviously, with the bye week, you go back and kind of self-scout and watch all the old film that you had for the year. And the one game that he played, you just saw his explosive potential, his quickness, his receiving ability. Very good player. So, he's working through some stuff and he's trying to get back as fast as he can. But at the same time, we just got to make sure we're smart with it and everything. But yeah, he's working, and I'm looking forward to getting him back very soon.
That was a very enthusiastic, oh yeah, from Stenavich. Oh yeah, it's like the Kool-Aid Man, or did the Kool-Aid Man say oh yeah, or is that just like Macho Man Randy Savage? I get the Kool-Aid Man and Macho Man Randy Savage mixed up all the time. Classic Greg Branos. They really love Marshawn Lloyd. I mean, talking him up all throughout training camp, and not just like the normal kind of hype, but just the Matt LaFleur calling him a nightmare matchup for defenses, and the staff talking about how explosive Marshawn Lloyd is. And we know with the Packers that their RB2 gets a lot of work under Matt LaFleur because, as he said many times, philosophically, I believe you have to have multiple guys in the backfield. You don't want your lead back getting worn down. And they've been kind of plugging that gap there with Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks, who have been all right, but they're not Marshawn Lloyd level talents. They don't offer what Lloyd offers in the run game and especially in the pass game. Josh Jacobs has been getting a lot of work Now he's been getting a good amount of breathers. He's only had one game, this most recent game, where he's played at least 80% of snaps. Usually it's kind of like mid 60% of snaps. So he's getting the breathers, but he's taking a lot of work in this backfield. And Matt LaFleur wants him to be ready and healthy and 100% for their playoff run. So when Marshawn Lloyd is back, I think they will get him involved for as long as Marshawn Lloyd can stay healthy. Fingers crossed. He hasn't had like a crazy injury history before entering the NFL, but unreal the amount of injuries this guy has dealt with this season. Going to move on now to the New York Jets. This was also before Week 11. This is play caller Todd Downing on whether there is a need to get Braelon Allen more involved.
I fully understand you have a lot of mouths to feed on this team, but like since you became a play caller, Todd, it's like for Braelon Allen is like 3 carries, 2 carries, 12 carries, 4 carries, 7 carries. Is there a need to get him more involved, or is it just you're not getting the short yardage where he excels, or does he have to get more time?
Yeah, I think, as you play with a lead more, if we can build a lead, you start to, be able to empty the chamber a little bit more on the run playlist. Also, to your first point, taking Breece off the field when he's getting going isn't certainly something we're looking for reasons to do either, So there's a delicate balance there, and we love what Braelon's doing. I cannot speak higher of a young player like that does everything we ask him to do with a smile on his face and with great team energy. And I believe that, as we start playing with the lead and start being a little bit more efficient on offense, he'll get more outs.
Oh, yeah. That right there is Breece Hall's music. Taking Breece off the field when he's getting going isn't certainly something we're looking for reasons to do. I believe that as we start playing with a lead and start being a little bit more efficient on offense, he'll get more ops. He being Braelon Allen. So, Todd Downing is saying you'll see some Braelon Allen when we're winning games, when we have a big lead, when we're salting that lead away. Well, that has not been happening lately. The Jets are 3-8. This, the whole Breece Hall thing this year was, or not the whole, a lot of it was Jets have a good defense. This will be a good offense, a good team, good offensive line. And we're going to see a lot of Breece Hall, right? With his defense dominating. Jets are going to be leading in all these games. Breece Hall, he's explosive. He's a bell cow. Well, the Jets defense is terrible, especially since Robert Saleh was fired and the defensive coordinator turned interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich is the defensive play caller, and they've been getting just absolutely blasted on the field on defense. But that's all right, because as the Jets fall into a hole, well, that's Breece Hall time. The Todd Downing just said we're not really that interested in getting Braelon Allen on the field unless we're winning, and we're also just not that interested in taking Breece Hall off the field, as we're trying to get him going. So very good for Breece Hall. Earlier in the season, we were seeing Braelon Allen get some real work in weeks 2 through 4. We saw 11 opportunities, 14 opportunities, 9 opportunities, and recently that has gone down. So if you got Breece Hall, very nice. If you have Braelon Allen, then he is not remotely playable. He is just a stash in case something were to happen to Breece Hall. Moving to Detroit. Our last running back clip. This is head coach Dan Campbell. And my God, what a clip this is. Should I spoil it? I mean, I already posted it to Twitter, but just listen to how much Dan Campbell loves David Montgomery.
Question about David Montgomery and how hard he runs, and how rarely the first guy gets him. Does that remind you of anyone else that you've seen, like, ever? Or who does he remind you of in that way?
Man, to me, he's a throwback. There's a throwback principles about him, and I mean that with all due respect. Like, his running style it's rare. It's rare. Look, we were watching clips this morning. I think Mixon at Houston runs really hard in today's football too. You know, he's an aggressive style, but I think David is just different. And I mean, his downhill doesn't give up. First guy, he's not going to let him tackle him. Continues to turn his legs and just violent. Never give up. Never going down. You know, when I watch him, it just reminds me of, you know, some of the great ones, man, you know, back in the heyday. I mean, they don't go down. And so, you know, freaking Earl Campbell, man. Earl Campbell ran like crazy. Walter Payton ran like crazy and would not go down, you know. So anyway, I think he's rare. I think we're fortunate to have him. And I can tell you this, the O-line loves blocking for that guy. And anybody that plays with him, I mean, you want to talk about inspiring. That inspires you to want to block.
I mean, good God, man. Dan Campbell is comparing David Montgomery to Walter Payton and Earl Campbell. Folks, when coaches talk about players in this manner, get those ears up. Get those antennas up. My goodness. And remember this for 2025 when we're drafting, okay? If they're giving us 6th round, 7th round, David Montgomery again, appreciate it. Thanks, dog. Wow. Something special brewing there in Detroit. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, incredible talent. So good. David Montgomery, also extremely good. And Detroit has an amazing offensive line. They want to just bludgeon you to death throughout the game. Mainly with a run. But they can do it in the pass game as well. Part of the reason is because the run game is so strong. And then once we get into those fourth quarters and the Lions have a lead and they've been punishing guys all throughout the game. And this is one of the great benefits of having a running back like a Derrick Henry, like a David Montgomery. Oh, Greg, how could you put David Montgomery in the same sentence with Derrick Henry? My guy, Dan Campbell, just compared him to Walter Payton and Earl Campbell. But when you have a big bruising back like that, who's also shifty, but can deliver punishment when needed, and in that fourth quarter, we have heard Dan Campbell talk about it. We have seen it play out on the field where they turned that ball over to David Montgomery. And we saw this in an overtime game recently. I can't remember exactly. I mean, I don't know if they've had more than one overtime game, but Lions get the ball, and Dan Campbell said, we're just giving it to David Montgomery. And we see the Lions march down the field because David Montgomery is just punishing these guys. These dudes do not want to tackle him. They can't tackle him. They are too tired to bring him down, especially by themselves. It's really special what has been built in Detroit. And it's talent, yes, but it's also a mindset. It's also the work ethic, the grit that they talk about. Really, really cool. And we're starting to see some other teams try to emulate this. We'll talk about the Panthers in a little bit and what they're trying to do with their backfield. But yeah, let's keep this in mind for 2025 for David Montgomery. And let's keep it in mind when coaches are just really, really glazing these dudes to an extreme level, like we saw with the Texans this offseason. Offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick just absolutely gushing over Joe Mixon. Same thing with head coach DeMeco Ryans, talking about, oh my God, it's unbelievable we got this guy. He's going to be so good for our offense. We can't wait to ride him until the wheels fall off, basically. And he's RB1 in points per game in fantasy this season. So yeah, let's keep our antennas up for this level of talk from coaches on their players. Wide receivers, we have one clip, and this was before week 11. This is Baltimore offensive coordinator Todd Monken on Deontay Johnson.
What are you seeing from Deontay Johnson in terms of getting acclimated into the offense? And has it been a challenging time for him? I mean, comes in, gets traded in the middle of the week, and then a short game week after that to kind of, I guess, get his footing is what you're doing.
Yeah, Tate's doing great. You know, it's not easy for him. You know, you come in the middle of a season, and you're trying to get him up to speed of what is relevant now, what we're doing now, but that doesn't cover everything. Oh, yeah, he's got to know 2-minute, you know, how we work that when we got to be up on the ball and know both spots. Oh, we happen to check at the line. He's got to know all the signals. He's got to know everything else that we do. Oh, he's got to know multiple spots, you know, to be able to go in the game, to feel comfortable there. He's doing great. He's doing great. You know, we're going to continue to try and find ways to get him on the field, but we haven't really lost anybody. You know, we're doing pretty good with the guys we got. And I understand he wants to play. I get it. You know, it's the initial coming to us, being excited. Great, that's awesome. When am I going to get to play? You know, I mean, you know, so I get it. I'm not frustrated by. We would want all of our players to want to get on the field, and he just happens to be one of our really good players that we're going to continue to try to find ways to get on the field.
Oof, brutal stuff there in regard to depth chart. Playing time. Quote, we're going to continue to try and find ways to get him on the field, but we haven't really lost anybody. We're doing pretty good with the guys we got. And again, this lines up with Josina Anderson's report that this trade for Deontay Johnson was just about depth, that Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman are still the top two receivers for the Baltimore Ravens. Deontay Johnson in his first game played 17 snaps, 5 snaps in his next game, got 2 targets there, 11 snaps in week 11, 2 targets, 0 catches. Deontay Johnson bags are down. Something terrible. He's not at all playable in fantasy. He's extremely droppable, like we've seen him do with the football many times in his career. Well, why did the Ravens trade for him then? Because he cost nothing. Because he was cheaper than Jonathan Mingo. That's why. And maybe he can help them in the playoffs. But for fantasy, woof. Todd Tight ends. Got one clip here. This was before week 11. This is offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, Greg Roman, talking about Will Dissly.
Did you expect Will to be as involved in the passing offense as he has been?
You know, he and Justin have this little thing going, and Will's got a really good feel for the game, Dissly, and he's sneaky good in the passing game. He's got a nice feel, really good feel for things. So that goes a long way at the tight end position. Anytime you're working inside, they got a nice little connection there. So that's great, man. We got to keep fostering that. Just to move the chains. But really pleased with the contribution he's been able to make for us this year in all different kinds of areas: protection, run game, and obviously in the pass game. He's been a guy that Justin's going to kind of, I don't want to call him a security blanket yet, but he trusts him, and I think they're building a good rapport.
Did you anticipate that?
I didn't think it would be this big. No, I did not. But I'm pleasantly surprised. It's great when that happens. Yep.
Greg Roman falling just short of calling Will Dissly Justin Herbert's security blanket. That is pretty cool stuff. Will Dissly not running a ton of routes, and offensive snap share, okay, it's actually dropped off a little bit in the past couple weeks. But he's getting targets. He's getting looks here from Herbert, and it's paying off. So I don't know if he's not necessarily like a weekly starter quite yet, but he is very playable in certain matchups. And if you follow the Coach Speak Index on Twitter, you saw that we thought last week was a pretty good matchup for him. Also in the Discord, got a lot of questions last week of, do I play this guy or do I play Will Dissly? This guy or Will Dissly? And a lot of them I was saying Will Dissly. And people were like, really? Why? Why Will Dissly? Well, because the first read target share, how bad Cincinnati had been against tight ends. And Will Dissly goes 4 catches, 80 yards, and a tutty. Pretty nice. So cool beans there. Will Dissly, again, playable, definitely playable in certain matchups. Has another good one this week. So if you picked up Will Dissly, if Bipocalypse is here, play him against the Ravens this week in the Harbaugh Bowl. Okay, that is it for the clips. Let's look at a couple things here real quick from the Discord. One is down in New Orleans, however you want to pronounce it. Taysom Hill went absolutely bananas last week. Incredible. And we knew how much that Dennis Allen, former head coach Dennis Allen, loved Taysom Hill. And people weren't sure how the Saints would utilize him after Dennis Allen was gone. And then we saw this past week that, they used him quite a bit. And they used him everywhere. And it's the same type of stuff that Dennis Allen was talking about in the offseason. We want to use him as a running back, as a quarterback, as a tight end. We want to split him out wide. And we saw that in week 11. I mean, incredible usage. 7 rushes for 138 yards, 3 touchdowns, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 50 yards, threw a couple passes, 1 for 18 yards, 1 was picked off. But this guy was all over the place. I mean, he was like Nightcrawler, just like backfield. Bamf! Now he's over here, tight end. Bamf! He's throwing a pass. Bamf! He's split out wide. Incredible stuff. If you're in a league where Taysom Hill is tight end eligible, you're going to want to pick him up. And not just because of that performance, but listen to what interim head coach Darren Rizzi had to say in his post-game presser. He was asked whether there was a focus on getting Taysom Hill more involved in the offense, and Rizzi said yes. When he touches the ball, it affects the game tremendously. And sometimes he doesn't even have to touch the ball. He can just affect the game by being on the field. Rizzi said, quote, "You want to get the ball to your playmakers," end quote. Also said, "We looked at the tape and we collectively felt that we got to get this guy the ball, get him more involved." Rizzi said, "If you look at our wins this season, Taysom's numbers are pretty good." Also said he does so many jobs. He's so valuable. Yeah, Taysom Hill, big time tight end play. Couple more Discord things here. Bears head coach Matt Eberflus, in his post-game presser, talked about the distribution of carries for DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson in Week 11. Eberflus said, quote, "I think the distribution in the run game was good with the runs 14-10 for our 2 runners." And DeAndre Swift got 14 carries. Roschon Johnson got 10. And this may be something that we see going forward. DeAndre Swift dealing with a groin injury right now. We will see his availability for Week 12, but Roschon Johnson looking like a pretty good pickup. During bipocalypses, if DeAndre Swift is playing, I mean, I'd be pretty nervous about playing Roschon. It's nice that they like to use him around the goal line, but if Swift is out, real nice for Roschon. But this could be a little bit of trouble for DeAndre Swift. Finally, from the Coach Speak Index Discord in Carolina, talk about a couple players here. First of all, head coach Dave Canales said Bryce Young will start in Week 12, said that he looked more confident in Germany. There was an aggressiveness to his play. And then when he was asked about, okay, is Bryce Young going to be the starter for the rest of the season? What's going on? And Canales said, we will still evaluate that QB1 role on a week-to-week basis. Then he was asked about Jonathon Brooks. And he said, I fully expect Jonathon Brooks to make his debut this week. And he was asked whether Jonathon Brooks will be on a pitch count of any kind. He said, not really. We'll have a game plan for how to play him, but we're not really looking for a specific number. I think that's the whole thing, right? When you get a guy ready to play on Sunday, the confidence should be that he can go out and just play a normal football game. That's what we want to make sure happens. End quote. And he referenced DJ Wanham and Jordan Fuller, who had been out for a while, came back in Week 10. DJ Wanham played 67% of snaps. Fuller played 100% of snaps in Week 10. So yeah, they've held him out longer than expected. He probably could have gone much sooner. They've said that he's physically healthy, but this is kind of a mental thing is why they've been kind of keeping him out. here. And then yesterday, Canales was asked about Jonathon Brooks again, and he was asked if Brooks will be on a snap count. And Canales said, quote, "It's really hard to go into a game thinking a guy's going to be on a pitch count. You really want to be able to count on them to play," end quote. And then Canales was asked what he's hoping to see from Jonathon Brooks, and he said, quote, "Just hoping to see him play confident, play fast, and be able to capture the style of football that he's used to playing. I know that that's going to take time, but I believe that he's physically ready to start that, go down that road, and particularly with Miles Sanders out, to give us another running back in there with Chuba to be able to carry the load." Yeah, I don't think this is like a typical situation where a guy is out with an injury. He's, ready to play, right? He's ready, but he's actually like 80%, 90%. And they're, just kind of work him in a little bit. It seems that Jonathon Brooks is 100% healthy. Like he's ready to go. Again, this is just like a mental thing for him, right? He hasn't played football in so long. He hasn't played in the NFL at all. And they just wanted to make sure, okay, when he steps onto that field, right? Like Dave Canales was saying, the confidence should be that, hey, just go out and play a normal football game. So when he's saying, when he's asked about the pitch count, is Jonathon Brooks on a pitch count? And Dave Canales says, not really. Let's break down real quick what not really means, because it does sort of intimate that kind of a little bit he's on a pitch count. I think that's more about how he looks when he's put into the game, right? When he's playing out there, if he hasn't cleared that mental hurdle that we've talked about and that Dave Canales has talked about, then they'll see that. And okay, well, maybe not completely ready mentally. So it's, we'll just ease him in. But if he hits the ground running and okay, we know he's 100% ready, and obviously mentally he's ready. Us holding him out this long paid off. To make sure he's actually 100%, not what some other teams might say. Oh yeah, he's 100%. He's ready. He's Nico Collins, 100%. Ready to go. He didn't play that normal snaps that he played. But if we see Jonathon Brooks get in there, which I think we're going to see him initially in this game. With Miles Sanders is out with an injury. I believe is his ankle, but. It is his ankle, yes. And he's week to week, according to Canales. Miles Sanders is. But, yeah, I expect Jonathon Brooks to get a lot of these targets that Miles Sanders was getting for some reason. Canales is talking about, we love throwing the ball to Miles Sanders. He's explosive. Dave, no. Stop it. He's not explosive. Jonathon Brooks actually explosive. And we've heard Dave Canales talk about, obviously, the running game and how stubborn they want to be with the run, but also talk about how he wants to use running backs in the passing game. And this is perfect for Jonathon Brooks' skill set. Like very, very, very good runner. Also very, very good in the pass game. So Chuba Hubbard, they love him. He's playing well. He runs angry, just like they want him to, paid him all that money to extend him. So it's not like Jonathon Brooks is just, claiming this backfield all for his own. But if he gets in there and he's looking really good, then, I could see him playing 30, 35%, maybe 40 if he looks like really incredible in this first game. And then, just kind of growing a little bit more, getting a little bit more of that workload. I don't know if it would get to like a 50-50 thing this season. But Dave Canales, I believe, trying to emulate the Detroit Lions offense with building this offensive line, getting two running. Well, why pay Chuba Hubbard all this money? Why draft Jonathon Brooks that high in the second round. It's because Dave Canales has this vision for what he wants the Carolina Panthers to be. And that is basically the Detroit Lions. Really good offensive line and running angry, just pounding the ball. You have a guy like Chuba Hubbard, who's, talented, tough runner. A guy like Jonathon Brooks, who's very explosive, very good in the pass game. It's David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs thing that he wants going on here. So, can both guys eat? Yeah, we see in some backfields that both guys can eat. We see that in Tampa Bay with Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. We see that in Detroit with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So, yeah, we could see it in Carolina under a head coach / play caller who wants to commit to the run game and also to the running backs in the pass game as well, like we saw in Tampa Bay, where Dave Canales used short passes to Rachaad White as an extension of the run game. So not all doom and gloom for Jonathon Brooks. He could very well be playable this season. He could have some nice weeks in best ball. And then next year, obviously it's going to depend on what his price is. I would think we're going to see a very depressed price for him, kind of similar to this season, but obviously for a different reason, not the injury, but the whole Chuba Hubbard thing. If we get a big discount on Jonathon Brooks next year, baby, I am in there. All right, that does it for today's show. I don't think we're going to have a show next week during Thanksgiving. Thursday is like really the only day that I can do this podcast. It's Thanksgiving. We got 3 games there. I may do a live stream on Thanksgiving during one of the games. We'll see. In the meantime, check us out on Twitter at CoachSpeakIndex. We are also on Blue Sky now at CoachSpeakIndex. Whatever that whole, just find us. It's blue sky dot something weird. I don't know why it's not just at handles, but we're on there. And then obviously the Discord, the Coach Speak Index Discord, where just so much incredible information is there. Tease that a little bit with a tweet today. A lot of really great stuff that we did not tweet out, that we have just for our Discord members. It is quotes on Drake May, designed runs, Nick Chubb's low snap count, the Miami running back room, the Minnesota tight end room, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Mims, Tyler Higbee, who should be coming back soon, and what Sean McVay thinks about that. So if you are playing fantasy, if you are betting on NFL, it's absolutely huge minus EV to not be in that Discord to get all that information. There is so much information on a daily basis from the head coaches, offensive coordinators, general managers. We get some of those pressers every once in a while, usually not this point in the season, but it's 30 plus hours of press conferences per week. And I watch all of that, and I put all the important nuggets from every presser into the Discord to keep you fully informed with full context. Cool. Sarah, take us out.